In 1919, a Haitian man named Charlemagne Perrault sat down and wrote a letter. He was not a government official, he had been one, a military commander under the Haitian government before the United States Marines arrested him in 1917 for resisting the occupation of his country. They sentenced him to 5 years of hard labor and set him to work breaking rocks on a chain gang in the streets of Cap Haitian. He escaped, he organized. By 1919, he commanded an estimated 5,000 fighters in the mountains of northern Haiti. The Marines called them bandits. Perrault called them patriots. He addressed this letter to the President of the United States.
We have been deprived of the most sacred rights. We have been reduced to slavery. I ask whether this is the nation that speaks of humanity and justice. Charlemagne Perrault, in a letter addressed to President Woodrow Wilson in 1919, translated from French.
This is Farms and Frontlines. I'm your host, Max Terzano, and I'm joined, as always, by Jessica Rudo.
Hello.
Last episode, we talked about Honduras, and it's probably our most banana wars focused episode yet in our series about banana wars.
Literal.
Because it took literal bananas. It was a crazy episode. We have a private citizen financing a coup, Secret Service failing to stop his boat leaving Louisiana, and then the United States recognizing the government that the coup installed. Who the president, after that coup, left on the boat from Louisiana. A wild time. So this episode is going to be a little different. We talk about two countries, and one that we've actually talked about a little bit before. There's one occupation playbook, and what's important about these countries is the moment the United States Senate looked at what its military had been doing in the Caribbean and began asking out loud whether any of it made sense. The two countries are Haiti and the Dominican Republic. What are you laughing at now?
I kind of wish the Senate would ask more often, what are we doing? And does it make sense?
Yeah, right? Gosh. Yeah, man. Join us for a whole new podcast on things we wish the U.S. government were doing.
Coming in 2028 after I retire.
Yes, there you go. It's going to get real unhinged after that. Haiti and the Dominican Republic, they were occupied simultaneously, administered by the same military apparatus, investigated by the same Senate committee, and in the end, exited by the same diplomatic formula. The banana wars in these two countries were not about bananas. They're about what happens when the logic of the Honduras concession, external control in the name of order, moves from a corporate boardroom into a government building and tries to run a country.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Good thing we learned and have never tried that again.
In 1915, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at. July 28th, 1915, United States Marines landed in Haiti. The official reason was the assassination of Haitian President Vilbron Guillaume Sam. He was killed by a mob the previous day following the execution of political prisoners that he had ordered. The practical reason, though, was that the United States had been watching Haiti's political instability for years. They were watching its debt, watching European creditors, watching the prospect of a German naval presence in Caribbean waters. Now remember, in 1915, the World War I had been going on for about a year.
Right.
And the U.S. had decided the moment had arrived to act. The occupation that followed would last 19 years. And we've talked more in depth on Haiti. We have 4 episodes if you want to check those out.
The 1915 intervention was framed in Washington as a response to crisis, but the planning preceded the assassination. The State Department and Navy Department had been preparing contingency plans for Haitian occupation since at least 1914. The political crisis provided the occasion. The strategic and financial logic had been accumulating for years. Hans Schmidt, The United States Occupation of Haiti, 1915 through 1934, Rutgers University Press, 1971.
Within weeks of the landing, U.S. officials presented the Haitian government, such as it existed, with a treaty. The treaty gave the United States the right to supervise Haitian finances, control Haitian customs revenue, organize and command a Haitian constabulary, so that's like a police force, and intervene to preserve order. Haiti was not in a position to refuse.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of Cuba, but
Yeah.
Haiti was next level.
Yeah. Again, as we talked about in those episodes that we did on Haiti, Haiti is like the Murphy's Law of countries.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
So if you know nothing about Haiti, just know that if it could go wrong, it probably went wrong in Haiti.
Yes. Several times.
Yeah.
The Republic of Haiti shall not assume any contractual obligation to foreign powers or grant concessions without the previous consent of the United States. Treaty between the United States and Haiti, September 16, 1915.
The treaty was presented as temporary. It was ratified by the Haitian legislature under Marine occupation and renewed in 1917. The United States would remain in Haiti until 1934. The legal architecture of the occupation had three components. First, financial. A U.S.-controlled Haitian-American corporation managed government revenues. Second, administrative. An American High Commissioner held effective executive authority over the Haitian government. Third, military. The Gendarme de Haiti, later renamed the Garde de Haiti, was a Haitian constabulary created, trained, and commanded by U.S. Marine officers.
The gendarmerie was the occupation's central institution. It replaced the existing Haitian army, which was disbanded, and put Marine officers in command of a force that was nominally Haitian but operationally American. The Guard became the instrument through which the occupation governed the countryside, collecting taxes, suppressing dissent, and conducting counterinsurgency operations against the Cacos. Mary A. Renda, Taking Haiti, Military Occupation and the Culture of U.S. Imperialism, 1915 through 1940. University of North Carolina Press, 2001.
The Cacos were rural fighters, a tradition of armed political resistance in Haiti's northern mountains that predated the American occupation. Under the occupation, the word became a category. Anyone the Marine Corps defined as a bandit was a Caco. So that's interesting too. We see that time and time again. And I think it's important to note these types of labels have a way of reinforcing camaraderie. Bad for the Marines in this example, but good for those that were bandits, right? They kind of embraced that labeling. Right. You see that with cartels, terrorists. You give them that label and it's not like
a weird sense of brotherhood.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a reinforcing mechanism, which is not great for those fighting them.
Right. Not what you want.
Anyone resisting was a bandit. The distinction between political insurgent and criminal was not one the occupation chose to make.
While Marines were landing in Haiti in 1915, the Dominican Republic, which shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, was already 9 years into a different version of the same relationship. In 1907, the United States and the Dominican Republic signed a convention placing Dominican customs revenues under American administration. A U.S.-appointed receiver general would collect all customs duties, the Dominican government's primary revenue source, and distribute the proceeds. 55% to foreign creditors, 45% to the Dominican government. So right off the bat, it's uneven.
Yeah. Are they paying back a debt?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is that for? Do you know?
Just European creditors. They said that the Dominican government had borrowed heavily from European creditors. The Roosevelt Corollary had established that the United States would step in before European powers used debt collection as a pretext for intervention, which we talked about.
Yep.
The 1907 convention was dollar diplomacy in its purest form. Fiscal control as the alternative to military occupation.
The 1907 convention was designed to be a solution, a way of satisfying creditors, maintaining Dominican sovereignty and form, and preventing the kind of European intervention that the Monroe Doctrine was meant to forestall. It was also, in practice, the first step toward the outcome it was meant to prevent, the subordination of Dominican economic sovereignty to external control. The ledger arrived before the Marines. The Marines arrived when the ledger stopped being enough. Bruce J. Calder, The Impact of Intervention. The Dominican Republic during the U.S. occupation of 1916 through 1924. University of Texas Press, 1984.
By 1916, Dominican political instability, factional conflict over the presidency, disputes with the American Receiver General over revenue allocations, and resistance to U.S. demands for further concessions had exhausted Washington's patience with the convention model. So they got tired of it, and you can imagine what the next step is.
Yeah.
In November 1916, U.S. forces already present in the country declared a military government. The Dominican president, Congress, and cabinet were effectively suspended. An American naval officer, Captain H.S. Knapp, issued Proclamation Number 1. The Dominican Republic was now under U.S. military administration.
The occupation is not to be considered as an act of war, but as an act of friendship, to maintain order, to prevent further bloodshed, and to establish a firm and lasting peace. Proclamation of Occupation by Captain H.S. Knapp, U.S. Navy, November 29th, 1916.
Isn't that nuts? This is not an act of war. It's an act of friendship.
We're here because we're in your house with our guns because we're your friends. Don't worry about it. Would you
Like
like some tea?
the British were saying the same thing to like the colonies, the American colonies, and they're like,
Yep.
Get out of here.
Yeah, right. Take your tea. The Dominican occupation differed from Haiti's in one significant respect. There's no treaty. The military government operated under no legal framework that the Dominican Republic had consented to. It administered Dominican law by executive order. It censored the Dominican press. It collected Dominican revenues. It tried Dominican civilians before military tribunals. And it ran simultaneously with the Haitian occupation, administered by the same Navy and Marine Corps apparatus, financed by the same logic, justified by the same language, order, stability, protection of American interests.
By 1916, the United States was operating military occupations in Haiti and the Dominican Republic at the same time, using many of the same personnel, the same institutional structures, and the same justificatory language. The simultaneity was not coincidental. It reflected a coherent regional strategy, not a series of reactive improvisations. What it lacked was a coherent exit plan. Alan McPherson, The Invaded. How Latin Americans and their allies fought and ended U.S. occupations. Oxford University Press, 2014.
And this is completely just out of left field, but I read I think it was David McCullough's book on Ulysses S. Grant. And I was super fascinated to see that like the Dominican Republic actually petitioned him when he was president to be annexed.
Yeah, to be a state, right?
Yeah, and he was all for it and he wanted to do it, but like people in Congress who didn't like Grant wanted to make him, they wanted to hurt him, so they said no, and that was the only reason. Yeah. And I thought that was actually a super interesting little factoid that I'd never known.
There's a ton of stuff like that. Like if you look at Reconstruction and everything after that, the bad that's done, by Congress, by James Buchanan.
He was awful.
Yeah, but I mean, just all the things like the good that could have been done are just undone out of pure spite, basically, as it comes down to. And Dominican Republic is one of them. Like, could have been a state. The corvée was the detail that made resistance inevitable. The corvée was a Haitian labor law, technically a mechanism for road maintenance, requiring rural Haitians to contribute labor days to public works. The occupation revived it and expanded it. Under Marine administration, the corvée became a system of forced labor. Haitian men compelled at gunpoint to build roads that served as occupation's military logistics, not the Haitian national economy. Men who resisted were beaten or shot. The system was documented in U.S. government records. It was subject to congressional testimony, and it was the direct cause of the expansion of cacao resistance in 1918.
Isn't that wild? Like they had this, like I think the corvée at its base form is pretty cool. They're like, everybody will come out and help build our roads. Right? Like, and I think that's pretty cool. Just talking about like Haiti, how they were very much Haiti for Haitians, like after their history, like no white people, where it's just us. We're going to make this a place we can live. Yeah. And then the military came in and was just like, we're going to twist that.
Yeah. I think when you frame it like Haitians for Haitians, then the corvée makes sense. But it makes me think of like Aztecs, Incas, like Spanish conquistadors, and how the evolution of their labor system went, you know what I mean? In the conquest of Latin America. And it was always
Oh,
It was
right,
always
right.
really bad. Like they leave for like 7 years to work in silver mines to like pay off their debt.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
I'm
not
always
good.
like, this isn't gonna go well.
This
Yeah.
is not this is not good.
Yeah.
The corvée under the occupation was not road maintenance. It was coerced labor on a scale the original law had never contemplated, enforced by armed Marines who had no obligation to treat their workers as anything other than a resource. The roads built under the corvée were real. They exist and are used today. They were built on something that the occupation's own documents, when read carefully, described as forced labor. Eveline Alexis, Haiti Fights Back, The Life, Poetry, and Legacy of Charlemagne Perrault. Rutgers University Press, 2021.
Charlemagne Perrault had commanded a district military force under the pre-occupation Haitian government. In 1917, he was arrested on charges of organizing resistance, convicted by a military tribunal, and sentenced to 5 years of hard labor. He escaped from the chain gang in Cape Haitian in September 1917 by disguising himself in a guard's uniform. Within a year, he had organized the largest arms resistance movement the occupation would face. By 1919, Perrault's forces had attacked the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. The occupation responded with aerial bombardment, which is interesting, right? At 1919,
Yeah.
well, it's the end-ish of World War I, so among the first use of air power amongst the civilian population in the Western Hemisphere, and with
Yeah.
counterinsurgency operations in the mountains that combined Marine ground forces with guard units. So that's pretty interesting.
Absolutely it is. But like, of course it's Haiti.
Yeah, I know.
It's like the first ones to get aerial bombardments in
Yeah,
the
it's gonna be
Western
Haiti, yeah.
Hemisphere. Of course it's Haiti.
Yeah.
Perrault was killed on October 31, 1919, by a Marine undercover operative named Herman Hannigan, who infiltrated his camp dressed in blackface. The Marines photographed his body, displayed against a door, arms extended, deliberately posed to evoke crucifixion imagery, and distributed the photograph across Haiti. The intent was to demonstrate that the resistance was broken and its leader was dead. The photograph produced the opposite effect. It became an icon of martyrdom that outlasted the occupation by decades. Mary A. Renda, Taking Haiti, Military Occupation and the Culture of U.S. Imperialism, 1915 through 1940. University of North Carolina Press, 2001.
The Cacao resistance did not end with Perrault's death. His successor, Benoit Batraville, continued operations until he was killed in 1920. The occupation continued for 14 more years. What the Cacao War established at the cost of the estimated 15,000 Haitian lives by some estimates, and hard to verify, was that the occupation could not govern Haiti through force alone. It would need eventually a different theory of exit. Exit theories are big right now.
Yes.
Where are the off-ramps?
I mean, I feel like that's a thing that is never given enough
No.
consideration. It's
Thought
very easy to
process.
enter. Having an exit plan is always
It's
a good
quite muddy.
idea. Yeah.
It's quite muddy, but again, 100 plus years ago, it's the same, like, how do we exit this? Yeah.
I think that's another one of our bumper stickers we could do. Like farms and front lines have an exit plan.
Yeah. Please read your history and come up with an exit strategy.
Yes, please. I'm begging you. Charlemagne Perrault was killed on October 31, 1919. His successor, Benoit Batraville, fought on until he was killed in 1920, which we talked about. The Cacao resistance did not end the occupation, but it changed what the occupation cost in money, in marine lives, and in something harder to quantify: the willingness of people in Washington to keep not looking. In 1921, they looked. The United States Senate established a select committee on Haiti and Santo Domingo. The full name matters because it covers both countries, one committee, one inquiry. The committee took testimony from Marine Corps officers, State Department officials, American journalists, and Haitian and Dominican witnesses. The hearings ran for months. The record they produced, Senate Select Committee on Haiti and Santo Domingo, hearings 1921-1922, serial set document 7954, is one of the most detailed primary sources on what the occupations actually looked like from the inside. not from a press release, not from a State Department summary, but under oath. The inquiry did not emerge from Washington on its own. It was pushed there, and the person who pushed it most directly was not a senator. In March of 1920, the NAACP sent its field secretary, James Weldon Johnson, to Haiti for 6 weeks. Johnson was already a significant figure. He was a poet, a diplomat, a civil rights leader. He traveled the country, documented what he found, and came back with the record of the occupation that the official accounts had not produced. What he found, he published. Between August and September 1920, The Nation ran a 4-part series under his name, Self-Determining Haiti. The series documented the corvée, the racial hierarchy of the occupation, the suppression of Haitian political life, and the structural relationship between the occupation administration and American financial interests on the island. But Johnson didn't just stop at publication. This is pretty cool. He briefed Warren G. Harding, the Republican presidential candidate who used the Haiti occupation as a campaign issue against the Wilson administration's record in the Caribbean. Harding won, and when he became president, he ordered the Senate inquiry. The Select Committee on Haiti and Santo Domingo was, in a direct and traceable sequence, the result of a 6-week field investigation by a Black American civil rights leader who understood that the story of Haiti was also a story about what American power looked like when no one in power was watching it.
That's interesting. I wonder what he used to get started in that you know what I mean, in that investigation. Like, how did he find out?
Great that you say that, because Johnson was not alone in understanding that Haiti had to be understood, right? He was following up. A man named Herbert J. Seligman, the NAACP's publicity director, had published his own account in The Nation on July 10th, 1920, before Johnson's series ran, and Seligman's was titled The Conquest of Haiti.
And The Nation is a newspaper?
They call it a separate progressive American monthly magazine.
Okay.
Which is funny because he briefed Warren G. Harding based on a progressive magazine.
For the NAACP in 1920, this is probably the best place.
Yeah, for sure.
To publish something. Okay.
The Nation ran The Conquest of Haiti before Johnson ran his account.
Okay.
Self-Determining Haiti. And Seligman's article brought the occupation's abuses into the public view, so earlier than Johnson's longer series, and helped create the conditions in which Johnson's investigation really landed. So the two of them taken together represent something the occupation hadn't faced before, which was sustained, documented public accountability from the American press. Driven by the organization most committed to make the United States answer for what it was doing in a Black republic. When you look at it, it makes sense, right? Like, it might sound surprising at first, but Haiti was very much a Black republic, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they founded themselves.
Exactly.
With that exact notion.
So it was really thanks to them and just their interest in it that made the Senate hearing happen.
It's good to point out that it took root. Like, there was somebody listened and followed up on it.
For sure. What the committee heard fell into 4 categories. The first was about the gendarmerie. Testimony established what the treaty language had obscured, that the Gendarme de Haiti, nominally a Haitian institution with Haitian officers, was an operational practice, an extension of the Marine Corps wearing Haitian uniforms. Marine officers held command authority. Haitian officers were subordinate in practice regardless of what the treaty said. The gendarmerie was the mechanism through which the occupation governed the Haitian countryside, collecting taxes, suppressing dissent, conducting counterinsurgency operations. The Senate record documents this without ambiguity.
The gendarmerie was, from its inception, an instrument of American military policy in Haitian dress. Its officer corps was Marine. Its orders came from the occupation administration. Its function was the extension of American control into the rural interior that the treaty's financial mechanisms could not reach directly. Hans Schmidt, The United States Occupation of Haiti, 1915 through 1934. Rutgers University Press, 1971.
The second category was the corvée. The committee heard testimony from Marines who had administered the labor system, so directly from the Marines who were out there running the chain gangs and whatnot.
Okay.
The language in the record does not soften what the corvée was under the occupation. Men compelled to work under armed guard, men beaten for resistance, road built not for the Haitian national economy, but for the occupation's military logistics. The occupation's own internal documents describe forced labor. The Senate testimony confirmed it under oath. Oh, so this is interesting. The corvée had been officially discontinued by the time the hearings began, not because of congressional pressure, but because the Kaka resistance had made it operationally untenable, right? Like
Yeah.
the rebels and bandits
That's
fought
right.
the people who were forcing citizens to build roads. Which is part of why no charges followed. The administration could present it as a corrected error rather than ongoing policy. So that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the third category was the Dominican legal question, and this is where the committee's Dominican mandate produced its sharpest findings. The Dominican occupation had no legal foundation that anyone could satisfactorily name under oath.
Right.
Like we had kind of
Like
talked
what we
about. They
talked
just
about,
came
yeah.
in and said, we're in control now.
We're here now.
Yeah. The Haitian occupation rested on a treaty, coerced as the treaty was. The Dominican military government rested on Captain Knapp's proclamation issued by a naval officer on his own authority. There's no congressional authorization, no treaty, no legal instrument the Dominican Republic had consented to. It's just Captain Knapp.
Yeah.
When senators asked directly under what authority the Dominican Republic had been placed under military administration, the answer they received was essentially the Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt Corollary, and practical necessity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah.
That those things we've been talking about was the reason they thought that they could just go in and be like, we run this country now.
Right, right. That's interesting. And did for several years.
Yeah, for almost a decade, which is not like a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So, as you know, that's not the correct legal answer. The committee knew it, and the records show it. The Dominican military government operated without a legal basis that could withstand scrutiny. The senators asking about legal authority were not receiving satisfactory answers because there were no satisfactory answers. The occupation existed because it existed, because once it was in place, the cost of ending it had to be weighed against the cost of continuing it. And for 5 years, that calculus had favored continuation. Bruce J. Calder, The Impact of Intervention, the Dominican Republic during the U.S. occupation of 1916 through 1924. University of Texas Press, 1984. I think that was just one of my favorite lines I've seen. Like, the occupation existed because it existed.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're here and we're coming. And what are you going to do about it?
Makes me think of like squatters' rights.
That's basically what it was. Like, the U.S. was like, we live here now and you're going to do everything we say because you have foreign debt.
Yeah.
Crazy. I was like, if anybody had credit card debt, somebody could just come in and be like, this is my house. I'll help. I'll be here until you pay it off.
I'm hanging out on your couch.
Yeah. You get the couch. I'm in the bedroom. So the fourth category was the question the committee never quite asked directly, but which the testimony answered anyway. Did either occupation have a plan for ending? The answer the record produces is no. Not a deliberate no, not a decision that the occupation should be permanent. More precisely, no one had been required to articulate an exit condition.
Well, for Dominican Republic, nobody even articulated
an entry.
An entrance.
It's just no one had been required to articulate an exit condition. That's how much they cared about this, right?
I don't know why you're surprised. Did you miss
attention at all?
Iraq and Afghanistan? Syria?
It's just so crazy that it's just like, we say it all the time, but like, learn history, learn from history.
Please.
Like, if someone knew history and was like Jess, if you were in charge of Iraq and Afghanistan, one thing we should have before we do this,
way to get out. Yeah, I know.
We have to get out on time.
What is the off ramp? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we miss that one, what's the next one? What's the contingency?
Exactly. Is it like Vermont? Are we just going to be driving for 30 miles before we see the next exit? What's up? So anyway, the occupations had expanded to fill the institutional space available to them. The gendarmerie had grown, the financial receiverships had deepened, the occupation administrations had built infrastructure, drafted laws, reorganized customs houses. None of this had been planned as temporary. None of it had a sunset clause. The testimony in 1921 described two occupations that had become load-bearing walls in the political architecture of two countries, and no one had drawn a blueprint for what would hold the structure up when the Marines left.
Ooh, that's poetic.
right? If it wasn't so dang disheartening.
Yeah. But again, a good historical case study to look at and learn and learn from.
Yeah. I feel like if we could write a book like The Highway with No Exits,
Yeah.
the cover would just be like the Blues Brothers driving off of that
Yeah.
cliff in Chicago.
Right.
An apt summary for our foreign policy. Um, so the 1921 hearings did not end the occupations. They did not produce criminal charges, but what they did produce was a record, which I'm grateful for because you get to read all
Yeah.
this wild stuff. A detailed, sourced, sworn account of what two military occupations look like when examined rather than described in press releases. The record is 1,800 pages.
Dang.
So if you want to go read that, go right ahead. It's available to anyone at the Internet Archive. It contains the testimony of the people who built these systems, describing under oath what those systems actually did. It's one of the most honest documents the United States government has ever produced about its own behavior in the Caribbean. And then it was filed. A scratch of a pen.
But this is 1921, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the Dominican occupation ended in 1924. And not because of the hearings directly, but because the hearings had made the occupation a political liability, because Dominican political leaders had organized sustained resistance that gave Washington a negotiated exit. A framework was arranged, sovereignty restored, customs receiverships preserved until debts were repaid, and the receivership lasted until 1941. The Marines left, the ledger stayed, but the Haitian occupation lasted another decade.
Yeah. That's why I pointed out it still took like 13 years for
Yeah.
Haiti to come to some kind of agreement.
Yep. Negotiations over withdrawal, over what Haitianization of the Guard would look like, over the financial arrangements that would outlast the Marines, stretched through the late 1920s and into the 1930s. The last Marines left Haiti in 1934 under Franklin Roosevelt's good neighbor policy.
Do you think the good neighbor policy was another way to be like, this is how we wrap this up?
100%. It made
This
us
is
look good. Well, good
right,
after
right.
all of the decades of not good.
I mean,
Um,
it's saving face too. Yeah.
yeah. And as we mentioned last episode, like they didn't interject in Honduras when there
hmm
was that strike. So, oh, good neighbors. But
hmm Yeah.
we're also going to overthrow
Yeah.
Guatemala. So if you could hurry this strike up, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it was a way to kind of save a little bit of face and be like,
Yeah.
we're getting out of here. This is,
It's a
we meant to
tool.
do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
A tool to find that off ramp.
Which, I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on just like the ideology of the good neighbor policy. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was did save a lot of face.
hmm
And just the name, right? Franklin Roosevelt's good neighbor policy.
Yeah.
I think the Mr. Rogers policy was
It
ahead
didn't
of
have
its
the name
time.
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good neighbor policy did not end U.S. influence in Haiti or the Dominican Republic. It ended the visible military presence. The financial mechanisms, the customs arrangements, the debt structures, the American-trained constabularies remained. In the Dominican Republic, the Garda trained under U.S. occupation produced within a decade Rafael Trujillo, whose dictatorship lasted 31 years and whose rise was the direct product of the institutional infrastructure the occupation built. Alan McPherson, The Invaded.
So here's what the 1921 inquiry actually was. It wasn't a reckoning or accountability. It was one branch of the United States government producing a detailed sworn record of what two other branches had been doing in the Caribbean, and then, having produced it, returning to the same framework that had produced the occupations in the first place. The senators who asked the hard questions appear in the record to have been asking them in good faith. The problem wasn't bad faith. The problem was structural. The Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt Corollary, the logic of hemispheric order, these were still operative. You could hear testimony about the corvée and still believe the alternative to occupation was worse. You could acknowledge that the Dominican Republic had been placed under military government without legal authority, and still argue that withdrawal required careful management. The system had its own gravity. The hearings documented it. They didn't overcome it. James Weldon Johnson had traveled to Haiti, written the series that forced the inquiry into existence, and briefed the incoming president. The Senate had taken testimony for months and produced 1,800 pages of sworn record. The occupations continued, the receiverships outlasted the Marines, and in the Dominican Republic, the constabulary the occupation built produced within a decade a dictator whose regime lasted 31 years.
The United States occupied Haiti for 19 years and the Dominican Republic for 8. In both countries, the occupation left behind institutions it had built. Constabularies trained and organized by Marines, financial arrangements that persisted for decades, infrastructure built by labor that was, in Haiti's case, coerced. In the Dominican Republic, the institution the occupation left behind, the Guardia Nacional, later the, what would you say?
Ejército Nacional.
Ejército
Gotta have some
Nacional.
spice on it. Ejército Nacional.
Ejército. Okay.
There you go.
Later the Ejército Nacional produced Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Monilla, who staged a coup in 1930, ruled as dictator until his assassination in 1961, and presided over a regime that killed tens of thousands of people. Trujillo rose through the ranks of the U.S.-trained constabulary. His military career was a product of the occupation's institution building.
I want to say I'm shocked, but
I know. In Haiti, the Guard trained by Marines became the Armée de Haiti, which staged a series of coups through the mid-20th century and whose institutional culture shaped Haitian politics for generations. The occupation did not cause this, but the structures it created were the structures these outcomes grew from.
I think that's important to talk to just that line right there. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't because directly of the occupation, but
Right.
it was with the structures that the occupation created, right? Like the Guard created the framework that later the Army de Haiti. I mean, when we talk about Haiti, it's just military coup after military coup after
Mhm.
military coup after it just so it was kind of the foundation that allowed that to happen.
And I do think it's important just to reiterate, it's a complex problem set. It's not a simple like one thing, but there is like something that does start the ball rolling down the hill, right? It
Mhm.
is, but for Haiti, it is a lot of things that lead to multiple military coups. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're interested, I highly do suggest going back and listening to the 4 episodes. We put a
Mhm.
lot of work into those, and it's just a fascinating history.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's a crazy history. The pattern across episode 1 through 4 is consistent. Sovereignty formally recognized, but functionally conditioned. Economic and military institutions restructured to serve external interests, and when the visible apparatus, the Marines, the zone, the concession system, was eventually removed, what remained was the institutional infrastructure that had been built in its place. Cuba had a constitutional clause. Panama had a canal zone with a fence. Honduras had a concession system without a fence, but with the same operational effect. Haiti and the Dominican Republic had occupations, the most direct form of the pattern, and when the occupations ended, they left behind the tools of indirect control. Next episode, Nicaragua,
Mhm.
a country where the occupation never quite ended and never quite won, where a guerrilla named Augusto Sandino fought the Marines to a standstill for 7 years in the mountains, forced a withdrawal that the State Department called a policy choice,
Nice.
and gave his name to a revolution that came 4 decades later, and that's referring to the Sandinistas.
Mhm.
Nicaragua is where the Banana Wars logic begins to break down, and it is where the exit ramp, the good neighbor policy, gets its first real test.
I think that's interesting because here in like Haiti and the Dominican Republic, obviously it wasn't about necessarily like bananas, right? But we know Haiti had sugar. Dominican Republic, they were, helping them pay their debts, but also had
Mhm.
American interests in the country. And they still, like it says, the good neighbor policy did help them withdraw, but the occupations lasted, like a decade to 2 decades almost in Dominican Republic and Haiti.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was a smooth exit where they're just like, you know what, you're right, we're handing everything over. Go ahead and run your country. You won't have any issues from here on out, like
Yeah. I don't know. Are there any examples of like, all right, we're gonna leave now and you go and figure it out. Like it's yours now, you figure it out. I don't even the US, there's not like a good example where it's like, and they picked it up and everything was fine, you know?
yeah, I mean, because like it's never the invading countries or the occupying countries' prerogative, right? Like I mean, more so as time went on, it was like, okay, everybody's watching us now. Like there's news, journalism's bigger, there's the internet. Like what we
Hmm.
do now is there's a bigger eye on it. But in the past too, it was more just like, all right,
I I do think there is some want in these past like examples that we're looking at for the country to be stable. I mean, the reason that the US is interested is because it was not stable, and the thought that money is going to get lost is a big
mhm.
driving factor, right? But
That's
I
always the protection of American interests.
yeah,
And that continues until after they leave, right? Like
yeah, but I do
once
think
they,
there is a
sorry.
want for there to be like stability for that reason. I don't think it's ever like we're just here for the fun of it, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean it in examples that we've seen in the past, like whether it was
Right.
Citibank
Right.
or the banana companies out of the that were making money
Yeah.
in the U.S. from Guatemala or Honduras,
Hmm.
like they had an interest in the country, and that's why they were there in the first place, right? But then
Right.
when they leave, it's because what we're doing is not seen as really like I don't want
And
to say
there's
appropriate, but they don't lose interest in their interests.
yeah, and there's never it doesn't appear that there's a hope that the people come out of this better of those
Right,
countries, you know?
right. Hmm.
The people are like the unfortunate like bystanders that suffer the brunt of everything.
This is the first time we're mentioning it on an episode, but we do have a special guest coming after this series
Hmm.
to kind of talk to us a little bit about the after effects
Yep.
of the occupation in Guatemala. And I'm
Well,
I'm really
the coup
excited.
in Guatemala. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited to like dig into that and see how it really affected the people.
Hmm.
Because like a lot of this is focused on what the occupiers did. We try to look a little bit into what the other folks did and see through their
Yeah.
eyes a bit, but it's harder to do, especially in
Yeah.
historical events. But I'm excited for that. So we have, like you said, Nicaragua next, then we'll
Hmm.
wrap up with Guatemala, and then we'll have hopefully our special episode will be out after that. And
Yep.
that'll wrap it up for the Banana Wars. So I really hope everybody's enjoying it. I know I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
All
after
right.
that we'll talk more about fertilizer.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Jess just wrote a really, really great paper on fertilizer. So if y'all are interested in hearing us talk shit, tune in. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
We'll talk to you later.